Welcome to the case study of workforce scheduling in banks and other back office operations. So basically, in these organizations, the management would like to derive a staffing plan that would help them decide the number of workers they need to accomplish their daily workload. So the primary objective is to find the number of workers. Now, in order to find the number of workers, if we know the total number of hours required for the workload to be completed, then we can easily find the number of workers because each worker would work for 8 hours a day. So, in order to find the number of workers, we need the total number of hours of workload. So basically, for 8 hours, you need one worker. So let's say the total number of hours of workload is X. So how many will you need? So simple cross multiplication, X multiplied by 1 is equal to 8 multiplied by, let's say this is Y, by Y. So here we need to find out Y. So Y is equal to X divided by 8. So the number of workers will be equal to the number of hours of workload divided by 8, where we are assuming that 8 hours is the number of hours that each worker puts in for a day. So now the question becomes, how do we find the total number of hours of workload? So if we know the total demand, that is the daily volume of the documents to be processed. So daily volume, and if we know the processing rate, that is how many documents can be processed per man hour. Then if we divide the daily volume by the processing rate, we will get the number of hours. So let's say the processing rate is X documents per hour. So X is known. Now the daily volume is Y. So Y is the volume of documents. So in 1 hour, a worker can process X documents. So in how many hours? Let's say Z is the how many hours will we process Y documents. So here Y is also known and Z is unknown. So again, cross multiplication. So Zx is equal to Y, or Z is equal to y divided by x. So y is the volume, that is the daily volume here, and x is the processing rate, x documents per hour. So the number of hours is volume divided by the processing rate. So as discussed earlier, using this example, once we have the total number of hours, then if we divide it by 8, we'll get the number of workers. So with this concept in mind, let us now find out how banks and other back offices arrive at their staffing requirement for processing the workload. Now, as we have seen in other case studies and examples, the first objective is to find out the total demand, that is the daily volume. Now first let us list down the various products. So let's say the products are checks, notes, and investments. So these are the various products which require processing in the bank. Now, based on the historical data, the bank will arrive at a daily volume of these documents that need to be processed regularly. So the next step is to list down the daily volume. So daily volume. Now let's say the bank has found out that on average they process 2000 checks, 200 notes, and 400 investments on a daily basis. Now the next step is to list down the sub processes for processing these documents. So let's say the first sub process is receiving. Now within receiving, you have to first determine the processing rate, that is how many documents can be processed per man hour. So if only one person is working, then within 1 hour, how many documents can he process? So let's say the bank determines that in 1 man hour, they can process 1000 checks, 40 notes, and 100 investments. So for checks, the daily volume is 2000, and per man hour they can process 1000 checks. So how many hours will be required to process 2000 checks? For ease of understanding, I will note it down here. So in 1 hour they can process 1000 checks. So in X hours they can process 2000 checks. So cross multiplication, X multiplied by 1000 is equal to 2000 multiplied by 1, or X is equal to 2000 divided by 1000, or X is equal to 2. Similarly, for notes, in 1 hour they can process 40 notes. So in X hours they can process 200 notes. So 40x is equal to 200, or x is equal to 200 divided by 40, which is equal to 5. So next we will list down the number of hours required to process the daily volume. So this is 2000 divided by 1000, which is 2, 200 divided by 40, which is 5, and 400 divided by 100, which is 4. Similarly, we'll now list the next sub-process, which is pre-processing. First, we have to identify the processing rate, that is how much we can process in each man hour. So let's say the bank has determined that they can pre-process 600 checks in an hour, 20 notes, and 50 investments. So based on this information, we can now find out the total number of hours required for pre-processing. So 2000 divided by 600, which is 3.3. 200 divided by 20, which is 10. And 400 divided by 50, which is 8. Now let's move to the next sub-process, which is verification. First, let's find out the processing rate, that is how many documents can be processed per man hour. So let's say they can perform verification for 700 checks per man hour. Now let's say notes do not need any verification, and investments can be processed at the rate of 150 documents per hour. So based on this, now let's find out how many hours are needed for each of these. So 2000 documents divided by 700 documents per hour will give us 2.85 hours. This we can leave as blank. And 400 divided by 150, which comes to 2.7. So now we have the number of hours required to process each document for each sub-process. So let us now find out the total number of hours required for each sub-process. So total 2 plus 5, 7, 7 plus 4 is 11. Now 8 plus 10 is 18, plus 3.3 is 21.3, and let's add 2.85 with 2.7. So 5 here, 8 plus 7 is 15, 1 carryover, 2 plus 2, 4, plus 1, 5. So this is the total number of hours for each of these sub-processes. Now generally what the banks would do is that they would add a 25% contingency to this total time. I mean, it depends on the bank what kind of contingency they think should be added based on their business. But this contingency can be used to take care of the unexpected absence and vacations of the employees. So let's add a contingency. Of 25%. So basically we are adding 25% on top of these hours. So in other terms, we can multiply these numbers by 1.25. 1.25. So 11 multiplied by 1.25 is 13.75. 21.3 multiplied by 1.25 is 26.625, and 5.55 multiplied by 1.25 is 6.9. So now we have the total number of hours required for each sub-process, that is for receiving, pre-processing and verification. But the main objective is to find the total number of workers required. Now each worker works for 8 hours a day, and in a day we need 13.75 hours worth of work. So if we have to find out the total number of workers, we have to divide 13.75 by 8, and that will give us the number of workers required for receiving. So let us do that. So the next step is to find the number of workers so 13.75 divided by 8 is 1.71. 26.625 divided by 8 is 3.32, and 6.9 divided by 8 is 0.86. So this is the number of employees required based on the demand of these products. So now what the organization would do is they would look at the total number of employees that are currently available for doing these activities. So let's list that. So this is the total number of workers required. Now next is number of workers available. So for receiving, let's say the bank has 2 workers. For pre-processing they have 3, and for verification they have 1. Next is to find out the variance. So for receiving they have excess of 0.29 workers. For pre-processing they have a shortage of 0.32, and for verification they have an excess of 0.14 workers. So there is shortage for resources to pre-process the documents, while there is excess for receiving and verification. So now basically what the management needs to do is to figure out ways to overcome this shortage. Now one of the ways could be that they can use the excess hours for receiving and verification and use them for pre-processing. So the workers who are doing receiving, once they have free time, they can contribute towards pre-processing, and same with the people who are doing verification.